I'm delighted to welcome back John Scanlon, who's the CEO of Suez Recycling and Recovery UK. Last time we interviewed John, we spoke about him delivering one of the company's core aims, which is having an empowered and engaged workforce. And we spoke about the challenges of getting people to respond to employee engagement surveys and what steps that John actually did to increase the response rates. So today, what we'd like to talk about is what were the specific findings. So John, you got these brilliant response rates. What were your findings from your surveys?
Hi, Louisa. Nice to see you again. I think the first thing I'd say is it's always interesting to us every time we do the survey about the differences that we see, because we get great granularity, both in terms of the locations, in terms of business areas, but also in terms of hierarchy of the company. And we see stresses and pressure points at different levels, maybe as we change structures or do things differently. So again, it gives us a really great insight into terms of where we need to take care and where we need to try and improve with our teams and our workforce, what we're trying to achieve. So I can probably give you some good examples. I think back to some of our early surveys, really. And again, when we do the engagement survey that we look at, it looks at 8 different characteristics. So how does it feel to work in your team? What's the leadership like of the organization? What's it like working for your manager? But also the things like fair deal, how are you paid, and giving something back. What does your company do for the environment? So I think maybe when we looked at the first set of surveys, we saw probably 2 things that I'd talk about. So one is that we saw maybe a bit of a feeling of a disconnect between the management board and the next layer down, I should say, of the organisation.
And when you say feeling of disconnect, what did it actually say in the reports that made you think that?
So what you can see is you can look at layer by layer in the business, what is the level of engagement? And that's a score which comes from kind of 0 to 7. So you can see the power of engagement in each part. And we can see that at that first kind of senior tier of management before the management board, it maybe wasn't as engaged as we expected it to be and wasn't as engaged as other parts of the business. Okay. So that was a bit of a surprise to us. But again, that's the beauty of doing a really in-depth survey, that sometimes it points stuff out that you might not realize yourself. So we created on the back of that what we call our senior management group. So our top 50 managers within the business. And we then talk to them very regularly, talk to them about company strategy, about the performance of the business, ask their ideas, their support for the direction of travel. And so I will talk to them once every month. I have a session with them for a couple of hours, talking about what's going on, keeping them up to date. Pre-COVID, of course, we'd meet up physically. And we can't do that quite at the current time, but we still keep going through Teams and Zoom and elements like that. So I think that's been really important. And again, as we do more surveys, we can see the improvement in that tier of management that now feels much more engaged and has a much better understanding, and ultimately means that we get better financial performance, because more engaged people, better customer service, better financial performance. So that would be one example I'd give you, Louisa.
So one of the things was a feeling of disconnect between the management and the board, and you found that out by a scoring system. So that's interesting. You used a scoring system. Was it scoring and feedback, or was it purely just a score, just out of interest?
It's 2 elements. So again, this I remind people that this is an independent survey done by the organisation Best Company. So they have a very structured format in which they do things. And so this is a numerical scoring of against all the questions. How do you feel against X, Y, and Z? There is, of course, on top of that, the ability for people to put a narrative in about what else they're feeling, to give a bit more richness in the discussion. So again, that's something that Best Companies anonymise, because again, we're really, really careful to make sure that we can't feed it back to an individual. So they anonymise it, and then they can give us kind of some feelings of, the types of things that people in certain tiers of the business have been saying to us. So again, it's really powerful information.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said as a result of that, what you did is you implemented sort of regular meetings where you were discussing kind of what was going on with the management in the business. How did that compare to what life was like before you had this feedback?
Well, I think before, being kind of brutally honest, we probably weren't doing as good a job as we could be as a management board in passing the messages out. We were certainly, emailing people, giving them updates, etc. But there probably wasn't that real kind of interaction in a two-way basis that people could ask about, well, why are we going down this particular route and not that particular route? So, putting this this new group in place that we meet with very regularly is super important. And again, if you've got your top 50 people in the company in a room together or on a screen together, you tend to get kind of really good interaction and better outcomes than you might have had previously. So I think it was a bit of an eye opener for us, a bit of a torch shone up on that particular issue.
Yeah, actually, that's so true, because I think, a lot of companies, you just wouldn't see the top 50 people unless you were at a company conference or something.
Yeah.
And even then you wouldn't get to speak to them. Fantastic. Thank you so much. That's been really eye-opening. And I'll look forward to chatting to you more about this in our next video, John.
Super. Catch you soon.